Dave Mustaine is best known as the frontman for the legendary thrash band Megadeth, one of the most iconic bands in heavy metal history. Mustaine has also become notorious for his controversial political views, as well as his long-standing feud with his original band, Metallica. Let's take a look at what all of Dave Mustaine's former bandmates have had to say about the infamous frontman. Metallica fired Dave Mustaine in 1983 due to his drinking problems and replaced him with Kirk Hammett, who has been with the band ever since. However, in 2011, Dave Mustaine and Metallica made amends in a big way when the band reunited with the former lead guitarist during Metallica's 30th anniversary shows in San Francisco. Following this reunion, Mustaine took a break from bad-mouthing Metallica in the press and instead constantly told the media about a pitch he made to James and Lars about starting a supergroup featuring the three of them and then Megadeth bassist David Ellefson. Dave spoke of this proposed supergroup so incessantly that, in an interview with So What magazine, Metallica frontman James Hetfield confessed that he wishes Mustaine would just shut up about the whole thing. "I do see a lot of stuff in the press with him talking about jamming with us and making an album," said Hetfield. "I read it and I say to myself, hold on, this is a Dave that we kind of wanted to forget about. You know, the big mouth that wants to just go, go, go. But there is an authenticity about him when he speaks. He doesn't always think too much before he does." More recently, James praised Mustaine in a 2016 interview where he called the Megadeth frontman an old friend, telling Build magazine, "He has done very well for himself in Megadeth." And after him getting kicked out of Metallica, he went on to have an amazing career. Dave is an amazing guitar player, great songwriter, and he has done some amazing stuff in his band. Legendary Metallica bassist Cliff Burton tragically lost his life in a tour bus accident in 1986, a mere 4 years into his brief but memorable career with Metallica. As such, not many Cliff Burton interviews still exist on the internet today. However, in one rare radio interview from February of 1985, Cliff gives his opinions on his former Metallica bandmate Dave Mustaine. "Dave talks a lot," said Cliff. "He talks a lot about us and about other people. It has a tendency to make me biased towards what he's doing, so I really can't listen to what he's doing with much of an open mind, because he's too busy talking smack about everyone. He runs his mouth, and we run our business." Longtime Megadeth bassist David Ellefson found himself in hot water when explicit videos of him were leaked onto the internet in May of 2021. In a disturbing twist, the videos then led to allegations of grooming. Though those accusations were quickly proven false, the damage was done, and on May 24th, 2021, Dave Mustaine released a statement saying that, in light of the recent allegations and an already strained relationship, Megadeth had officially parted ways with Ellefson. Since then, Ellefson has been transparent with media outlets about his resentment towards Mustaine, saying, "I kind of saw the events of last year as just the perfect opportunity to choose box office over brotherhood. I look back at it now, and I feel like I got kicked out of hell. It was just abusive. It was unnecessary." Ellefson responded to the countless attacks that Mustaine has made against him in interviews, comparing them to all of the hostile remarks Dave had been making about his ex-Metallica bandmates in the 4 decades since he was dismissed from the group. "He's obviously not gotten over this thing about being fired from Metallica," said Ellefson, "so he wanted to do to somebody else what he felt they did to him, which is kick him out and then someone else play his guitar parts." Though Lars Ulrich of Metallica does not always praise Dave Mustaine in interviews, when he does, Mustaine wants to make sure that everyone knows it. That's why, in 2011, Megadeth created a dedicated post on the news section of the band's official website, bringing attention to an interview where Ulrich sings Mustaine's praises. With the headline that reads, "Metallica's Lars Ulrich, I've always admired Dave Mustaine," the page still exists on Megadeth's website to this very day, and exclusively contains quotes from a Revolver magazine interview where Ulrich says, "My son Miles is a huge Megadeth fan. I've always admired Mustaine. He's an incredibly talented musician." Despite this, Dave and Lars simply do not get along these days, and it's all over a publishing dispute for Metallica's 1982 demo tape, No Life Till Leather. Mustaine has blocked the reissue of this album due to Lars wanting songwriting credit for 2 tracks that Dave himself claims he wrote from beginning to end. "If James wants to give Lars his percentage, that's fine if he's afraid of him," Mustaine told Rock Hard magazine. "I'm not afraid of him. I'm not giving nothing to Lars Ulrich." Ron Mcgovney is best known for his time as Metallica's original bass guitarist from October of 1981 to December of 1982. Mcgovney's time in Metallica was reportedly tumultuous, as he often clashed with Dave Mustaine. After leaving Metallica, Mcgovney became uninterested in playing music and sold most of his equipment. Although no longer involved in the music industry, Mcgovney will still occasionally take to Twitter to offer his opinion on all things Metallica. One such occasion came in September of 2022, when Dave Mustaine told Classic Rock magazine magazine that he believed he was the alpha male within Metallica. "I am clearly the alpha male," declared Mustaine. "Why did I have to do everything when I was in the band? Why did they always ask me to talk to promoters and collect the cash? Why was I the one who had to do the fighting? Why did I have to talk in between songs?" After Revolver magazine tweeted a link to an article about Mustaine's comments, Ron retweeted the post and said, "Dave talked to the promoters? Collected the cash? James didn't play guitar before Metallica? That's not how I remember those days. Just the opposite, actually." Guitarist Marty Friedman played on some of Megadeth's best-selling albums, including Rust in Peace as well as Countdown to Extinction, before he quit the band in the year 2000, citing creative differences. In February of 2023, fans were ecstatic when it was announced that Friedman would reunite with Megadeth for a special guest performance at the band's shows in Japan, marking the first time that Friedman performed alongside Mustaine in over 2 decades. However, Marty had previously rejected an offer to rejoin Megadeth back in 2014. Friedman says he turned down the Megadeth reunion proposal due to the fact that the band is largely seen as Mustaine's solo project. "Had it been more of a band situation and not such a one-man Dave Mustaine main man party, I might have considered doing it," said Marty. "But at the end of the day, Megadeth is so much Mustaine because that's the way he engineered it. I didn't feel that kind of camaraderie. I felt like I would be going out there and tour and it was going to be Dave Mustaine's big success." In 1989, drummer Nick Menza was recruited to join Megadeth, helping to shape what fans now consider the band's classic lineup. However, in 1998, Dave Mustaine would unceremoniously fire Menza via telephone a mere 2 days following surgery that removed a tumor from Menza's knee. Mustaine would later say that he dismissed Menza from the band because he believed the drummer had lied about having cancer. Menza would debunk these claims in 2015, taking to his personal Facebook to say, "Let's set the record straight, right here and now. I didn't fake having cancer. That's total BS, and I have the medical records to back it up." Only a few weeks later, Menza would once again post to his Facebook, this time calling out Dave directly. Menza said, "To Dave Mustaine in regards to my publishing royalties, I find it unprofessional that you conduct business like a child. Quit playing games. Be a man and stop taking food from my kids' mouths." Menza further revealed that he was offered a quote, "very unfair deal to rejoin Megadeth." A year and a half later, in May of 2016, Nick Menza would collapse on stage during the 3rd song of a set with his band, Ohm. Menza suffered from a massive heart attack and was pronounced dead upon arriving at the hospital. Prior to Dave Mustaine taking on lead vocal duties for Megadeth, the band spent months trying to find a lead singer. This includes vocalist John Cyriis, who spent 8 months in the band before parting ways due to Mustaine not being on board, with John's preferred lyrical themes of aliens and life on other planets. Apparently, Mustaine informed John's mother that he was firing her son from Megadeth, letting her break the news to him instead of doing it himself. "One day I came home, sadly learning of the news from my mom," said Cyriis. "The Daves had dropped by and left with her an envelope filled with my lyrics that I had left in David Ellefson's van." She went on to explain how Dave Mustaine was not prepared to launch the first Megadeth album with my lyrical subjects, and that my lyrical obsession with the possibility of life existing on other planets was a bit much for his mind. Cyriis continued, saying, "Dave further went on to explain that his vision for Megadeth was more politically and socially oriented, adding that I was a great singer and a nice friend, but they felt they needed to move on." Cyriis then went on to form the speed metal band Agent Steel, where he can freely express his fondness for Martians and UFOs as much as he pleases. Guitarist Chris Poland joined Megadeth in 1984 after being recommended to Mustaine by the band's then drummer Gar Samuelson. According to Mustaine, Poland was temporarily let go before Megadeth embarked on their first tour with him, but was swiftly brought back. He then remained in the band until he and Samuelson were fired in 1987 due to alleged issues with substances, which had even led Poland to sell off Mustaine and Ellefson's guitar gear along with his own in order to support his habit. In response, Mustaine wrote the song Liar for their following album, which was partly meant as a call-out to Poland. In 2004, Poland filed a lawsuit against Dave Mustaine regarding the use of the 3 Rust in Peace demos on the album's reissue without Chris's permission. Allegedly, Mustaine included the demos because he assumed Chris would be thankful for the promotion. Chris eventually settled for approximately $10,000, which Mustaine says completely ruined their friendship. Then, in a 2022 interview with Rock Talks, Poland would reflect on the lawsuit and said, "I couldn't get a hold of Dave. off. I called his manager 10 times, and finally, on the 11th time, I left a message. I said, if you don't call me back, you're going to be hearing from my attorney. And so he calls me back, and then he insults me and tells me, well, Chris, all you did was a couple of solos, and Dave and us thought that you would just do it for the fans. And I'm like, hey, I did it for the fans, but everybody else is getting paid. I'd like to be paid for it too. Chris went on to say that he hasn't had any contact with Mustaine for nearly 2 decades. After Dave Mustaine witnessed Jeff Young transcribe Chris Poland's solos note for note in less than 30 minutes, he hired him on the spot as Megadeth's new guitarist. However, after being in the band for roughly 1 year, Young was fired from Megadeth due to reportedly having an affair with Mustaine's then-girlfriend, Diana, an allegation that Young has denied. In 2023, Jeff Young joined the band Kings of Thrash alongside former Megadeth bassist David Ellefson. The band's live sets consist of performances of classic Megadeth songs. When Young was asked in an interview if he and Ellefson had received any feedback from Dave Mustaine about their new band, Young replied, "We haven't, nor would we care or concern ourselves with any of that." When the interviewer noted that Megadeth's recent set lists largely omit material from the first 3 albums, Jeff said, "They don't play those songs because they can't play those songs. Mustaine can't play them or sing them. I'm not being a jerk, it's just a fact. He can barely play and sing the stuff that they're doing." In the very same interview, Young also called Mustaine a pathological liar, saying that if Pinocchio had a brother, it would be Dave Mustaine. According to Dave Mustaine himself, Chris Broderick was unequivocally the best guitarist that Megadeth ever had. But that praise still did not stop Broderick from leaving the band in 2014 due to artistic and musical differences. Mustaine said that one of the reasons for Broderick's departure was the frustration caused by Megadeth's fanbase demanding a reunion with classic Megadeth guitarist Marty Friedman. Broderick would tell Guitar World in 2014 that, while it was a huge honor to be a part of Megadeth, his time in the band was not fulfilling from a creative standpoint. "I wouldn't say it's necessarily artistic and musical differences as much as it is the ability to express my musical and artistic choices," said Broderick. "Everybody knows that Megadeth is really Dave, and that's fine." Chris further stated, "There comes a time where you're like, I've done this, and it's great, but I'm a musician and artist at heart, and I need to express myself that way, so I need to have an outlet for myself, and not just do it in support of another person." Just 6 days before the commencement of Megadeth's Blackmail the Universe tour, Shawn Drover took over drumming responsibilities from Nick Menza, who was allegedly unable to prepare for the physical demands of a full US tour. In 2012, Drover tried to distance himself from a controversial political comment made by Dave Mustaine on stage, wherein the Megadeth frontman accused President Obama of staging the tragic shootings in Aurora and Wisconsin that took place that year in order to turn the US into a full-fledged fascist regime. "He doesn't speak for the band," Drover said. "Whatever opinions Mustaine expresses are strictly his own." Shawn Drover eventually went on to become Megadeth's longest-serving drummer, having been a member of the band for just over 10 years. However, in November of 2014, Drover announced his departure from Megadeth, wanting to pursue his own musical interests. This was quickly followed by the departure of guitarist Chris Broderick, who went on to form the band Active Defiance alongside Shawn. In a 2017 interview with the Talking Metal podcast, Drover reflected on his time in Megadeth and said that he will always be thankful to Dave Mustaine for giving him a career. After Dave Mustaine unsuccessfully attempted to reunite Megadeth's classic Rust in Peace lineup in 2015, legendary Lamb of God drummer Chris Adler was brought in to perform on Megadeth's 15th studio album, Dystopia. Adler eventually resigned from Megadeth due to continued pressure to leave his band Lamb of God and join Mustaine's band full-time. In 2021, Adler would say in an interview that getting the call to play with one of his favorite bands was a life-changing experience. "The phone rings and it's Dave," recalled Adler, "and he's like, there's a lot of people that I really trust that tell me you're somebody that I think should be talking to right now. I'd really like to go back and make a pretty sick thrash record, and I'm interested in having you be a part of that, if you'd like to be." And it was a candid camera kind of moment. It really was the band that changed my life. And now I'm on a phone call that's about to change my life again. Mustaine himself would commend Adler not only for his incredible drum playing abilities, but also for his positive energy and optimistic outlook towards life and music. Slayer's Kerry King joined the newly formed Megadeth as their first ever rhythm guitarist in 1984. However, King would only be able to tolerate Dave Mustaine for 5 shows before he got so fed up that he quit the band. "I don't know how anybody can be in Megadeth for more than a couple of hours, cause Dave Mustaine is crazy," said King. His departure from Megadeth later evolved into a long-running feud between the two. In 2005, King would say, "If you let Mustaine talk long enough, he'll bury himself. He's just a miserable person. His bass player from day one, referring to David Ellefson, is suing him. I hope he wins. I felt bad for the guy having to put up with him all those years. In the years since, the two have found a way to coexist, with Slayer and Megadeth partnering up for several tours together. Based on this list, it's obvious that many of Dave Mustaine's former bandmates strongly dislike him. But what about other rock and metal musicians in other bands? If you want to learn about other rockers who absolutely can't stand Dave Mustaine, click here now. You don't want to miss this shocking list.